What's the difference between someone that just has an idea and someone that actually executes it?
I try to be methodical in a lot of things that I do, right? So if I get an idea, I want to think through all the components that it's going to take to actually make it happen. Where I find people usually drop off is when there's discovering what the problems are to doing it.
Welcome to this episode of Mission Control. This is your host, Ramon Peralta with Peralta Design, and we launch brands. We've got a great episode in store for you. New format change. We're going to get right to it. Please help me welcome Matt Smith, founder of Kicksmith Studios.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being here. Appreciate all your help.
Can't wait to kick it with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
He's been waiting. He's
been holding that one in.
Yeah, and please help me welcome Peralta Design's Director of Web Development and my right-hand man, Mr. Jorge Pezo Candelario.
Excited for jerky and for frying a turkey.
All right, jerky and turkey. Yes, and our senior back-end web developer, the man on the soundboard, Mr. Kevin Atterbury.
Good morning.
Just a man of few words.
That was it. I mean,
yeah, I know, like the build up,
point, right?
The anticipation was there. So we're gonna get this episode, Matt, and we're so glad to have you. Congratulations on the recent launch, and thank you for trusting us with your brand.
Yeah.
And launching your brand and creating. It was fun creating the logo and the website and everything. And so this is part of our launch sequence. Right. Yep. This episode, and we want to give you the platform. But I think there's lots to learn from folks out there that have an idea and don't know how to execute, or may never execute, or sometimes you consider that a failure to launch.
Yep.
And we want to really dive into the how. Like, we were talking earlier. Your daughter pointed out, like, "Wow, Dad, you really did it."
Right. Yeah.
And that special moment. Tell us what does it take, and what's the difference between someone that just has an idea and someone that actually executes it?
Yeah, I think I try to be methodical in a lot of things that I do, right? So if I get an idea, I want to think through all the components that it's going to take to actually make it happen, right? And this is true in my corporate life or my personal life, right? And I think it boils down to two really good points, right? One is identifying the process that it takes to execute, right? And to me, I'll thank Ray Dalio for this, because I worked at Bridgewater for a long time, and one of the best things that I got from that was a very methodical 5-step process to execution. Where I find people usually drop off is when there's discovering what the problems are to doing it, right? Like, So there's an obstacle and it's like, oh man, that sucks. And then you just walk away from it, right? Like, so to me, the most critical part is identifying the obstacles, but then not tolerating those things, right? And getting past those things. And then the other one is just discipline, right? Like, and I tell my kids this all the time. I'm like, big difference between you and anybody else is your ability to do the thing that needs to be done when you don't want to do it, right? And a lot of people will wake up, and you can apply that to exercise, right, or, jobs or anything like that, right? You wake up and you go, yeah, not today, right? Like, so I've always been a person where I'm just like, it's today, right? Like, just got to get it done. And I think you have those two things, you can pretty much do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something else you can shed some light on that would be of value to our listeners, is that you did this technically while moonlighting. You have a corporate job,
yep,
and then you have an idea and you execute it, and now you have like a legit brick and mortar. And for those that aren't familiar, this concept is quite unique. You basically go in and customize your own sneakers.
Yeah, it's very much like a paint and sip model. Has all the familiar components to that, with the exception of, instead of painting on a canvas, right, you're bringing in a pair of sneakers, or we provide a pair of sneakers in some cases, and we teach you how to customize those things, right? And we think it's something that unites everyone. So even if you're not into sneaker culture, right, what's been great, even with the first couple weeks that we've been open, hugely diverse crowd, right? In age, in ethnicity, in gender, everything, right? So everybody's loving it. And I'll talk to how I kind of came up with the idea of that, but that actually was one of the things where, like, I experienced a version of this live with a very diverse group of people. And I just said, I think I can do this, and I think I could do this a little better, right? The way that I saw it. So,
yeah, that's awesome. And it happens to all of us when we see an idea and we're like, man, I thought about that 10 years ago, and now I wish I had done it. Or, everyone has these ideas where they think they could have invented something, but it's not just the idea. I feel like ideas are a dime a dozen.
Exactly. I know people who have like literal journals just full of $1 million ideas that they never execute on.
You gotta do it.
And it said that the difference is made in whatever your daily routine is, right? The difference, like you said, you get up every morning and you have to have that mindset, and it's those things that you do every single day that are going to determine whether you execute that or not.
Yep.
And to be dedicated to it and realizing that you need a plan, and then you need to be able to execute on that plan. And there's going to be challenges. You're going to hit roadblocks. You're going to hit setbacks. Is there anything in particular that you didn't expect that kind of like was a curveball that you had to deal with?
Yeah, I think the whole thing was a little bit of a curveball, right? But I think the bigger components for me were, so when I went through that process of like, hey, okay, I've got this idea, and now let me figure out what the obstacles are to getting to that thing. The biggest ones were time commitment, right? To being able to do this, like allocating that, right? So I'm a father. I've got a very demanding, executive role in a very sizable institution. And I've got other things that I do, right? Whether it's community involvement or coaching, things of that nature. And so trying to figure that piece out, right? But I think do
you have any tips for how do you make the time? That sounds like a full schedule that so many people who might want to be entrepreneurs find themselves in that same situation. How do you make that time?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're willing to get up at 4 a.m., you could do a lot of stuff, right? Like that's the big thing, right? So I'm like up at 4, doing my exercise, get that out the way, right? Spending
like
a
the
couple
Mark
hours
Wahlberg
doing
routine.
those things. Yeah, like honestly, it's just, you just got to create the time, right? Like that's really what it is. And I think a lot of times, even when I'm trying to like spend time with my children or do other stuff, right? It was like, oh, let's watch a movie. Okay, cool. So I'm watching the movie, but I might also be, having the computer on the side a little bit, doing that stuff. And I think they have been good with me, right? And understanding like I'm a really high functioning person and I want to do a lot of things. But sometimes you just got to be in the moment, right? And so I did try and take a lot of time to dedicate like directly to this, like once it got to a place where I felt there was a runway for it, but then also creating the time to detach and like be in the moment when like you're coaching a game or you're doing these things, right? So it's just scheduling, right? And making sure that you're following through on that. I think that was a big piece for me, especially as a person who I don't consider myself very organized, right? So having to really, kind of listen to podcasts or listen to, folks that I think are really good at that and get tips and techniques on how to like manage your time. I think that was a big thing. And then the other thing was just more the understanding the components, right, of launching something like this, right? Everything from getting a liquor license, what does that mean, right? Everything from getting a building CO, right? What can you do on your own? What can't you do, right? When do you have to get help? When do you not have to get help, right? I am learning these things as I'm going because I've never done a brick and mortar business before.
And they say it's location.
Right.
So dying to know more about that experience. Just kind of getting a brick and mortar space in this post-pandemic world, what does that even look like? And then how do you finally say, all right, this is going to be one of the biggest cornerstones of make or break for this? How do you say this is the space?
So that's actually a very detailed story, right? So it's a good question because I think that was a thing that I struggled with a lot, right? So if I put that on obstacles, that was one of the bigger ones. Mm-hmm. When I thought about this as a concept, I felt that it could potentially grow legs and be franchised, right? And so to me, I set everything up as if it was a very scalable thing where you would open multiple locations. And thinking about that strategically, the tactical component of it was, okay, well, what do I need in order to make the first one, proof of concept, very successful, right? And I would tell you, right, choosing a location was a very interesting process because I had a lot of people who I was consulting with about doing this. Some people were like, hey, just get like a warehouse, right? Keep the rent super cheap. You don't need, some fancy thing, go for something. It's more of a destination thing. You're going to drive people through marketing and stuff. I actually went in a different direction. And the reason why was because I think once you establish the brand, right? And once I developed this kind of market, kind of presence, I think I could go in a direction like that if I wanted to. The first one, I felt there's a premium to being visible. There's a premium to having a really nice, beautiful, clean space, right? That people come in and, kind of have a feel to it.
A customer experience.
Right. And so to me, the premium on the real estate was, let's get something that's involved in the action. It's not a walk-in business, right? So technically you're breaking a little bit of rules with that because, it's not a traditional retail store where like, oh, you're walking by and you're like, oh, let me go in this store, right? But what I noticed even after opening is because we're close to a lot of restaurants and a lot of like very densely populated area, people are like looking in the window. They're intrigued. Right? They're looking in the window. What's this thing? Yeah. Like, people were coming in as we were building out the space and Greg, my partner, and I, we built this out by hand, right? Like, so all the paint, all the stuff that you see there, we did everything, right?
Well, even the nomenclature, it's Kicksmith Studios. Yeah. So you're already implying there's going to be more locations.
Yeah, that's the point, right? Like, so I think that the goal there would be that, right? And so look, I think that from our perspective, we think we made the right choice. It definitely is impacting the financials of the business,
right?
But I think you get the payment down the road, right, for that, which is good.
Yeah, and it's a risk you took. Yep. I think entrepreneurship is big on risk, but we want to learn a little bit more about what makes you tick and what was that light bulb moment where you had this idea when we come back right after these words.
Sure.
Wondering what to do with your old smartphones or outdated computer equipment? Do you know what hackers can do with your sensitive personal data that you are leaving behind on these hard drives? The team at National E-Waste Services understands the importance of protecting sensitive information and the environment. Their services also include the safe and discreet disposal of battery banks, cables, phones, and more. For more information, visit nationalewasteservices.com.
Mission Control.
And we're back. Please help me welcome one more time Matt Smith, founder of Kicksmith Studios.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so tell us a bit about young Matt. Where did this creativity all come from?
Yeah, sure. So, well, I don't know. I wouldn't coin myself as a creative person, but I get why people say that, right? I guess it's the thing. I grew up in New Rochelle, New York, so not hugely far from here, right? And I've been living
New Rock City.
New Rock City, that's right. Yep. So I grew up there, went to college at LaSalle University in Philadelphia, came back home, got my MBA at Iona College, right? And I've been living in Norwalk pretty much the last like 15 years or so, right? And I've had a very successful career in financial services that ranged from doing a lot of, corporate restructuring, M&A, finance, launched several digital businesses within banks or larger financial institutions like GE Capital and now Webster Bank, and then spent some time at Bridgewater, which is a huge hedge fund that's located here in Connecticut. So I've had a very diverse background, right? I've had some really cool experiences from a corporate perspective that I think helped me, get the benefit of both capital as well as, the mindset to be able to do the Kicksmith launch, which is really cool.
Yeah. And then always into sneakers. Like when did this, or have you tried other, let me back it up a little bit. Cause they say that, when you fail, it's your first attempt in learning.
Yeah. Was
Kicksmith your first venture that you tried to launch on your own, or have you tried other business ideas?
So I would say it is. So to be determined the success or failure of it, right? I've had a pretty unique career though, because I've got to launch multiple businesses through other companies, right? So I've launched 2 direct-to-consumer digital banks before from scratch, like completely from scratch. And I've launched a banking as a service business while also managing a lot of different major functions within, the financial services industry, right? So I've had experience doing full-scale business launches, not with my own capital.
Right,
and not,
that's the best way to do it.
Right, and not with a retail component, right? So I felt very confident I knew what I was doing, at least from a foundational perspective, to do it. And I think the idea came from just what you said, right? I love sneakers, right? I think sneakers are art. I've got over 500 pairs of sneakers
So you
at my
consider
house.
yourself a certified sneakerhead?
I would definitely do
I believe
that.
so. Yeah.
I would definitely do that.
What's your storage solution, by the way?
So I have a sneaker closet, and then I've got like overflow at various different parts of the house, which is a point of contention at home, but we won't get into that.
You keep the boxes. I know some people do like the clear, like acrylic.
Yeah, I
boxes.
keep the boxes, but I store the boxes in the attic, and then I display them like in my sneaker closet, and I've got the clear, boxes, because I had all the boxes before, but then the issue is you got to take pictures to like get a visual. So if I'm going in there and I'm like, what do I want to wear today? I always start with the sneakers, and I'm like, I don't want to look at these pictures. So I just kind of like put them on display when I got to my recent house. But yeah, no, I've been into it for years. I think that my love for shoes started when I was in middle school. And I remember getting, pairs of Jordans. I went to a private high school, and actually, like, funny story is Jordans used to come out during the week, right? They stopped that because kids would skip school, which cut to my story. What I would do is I would go to school late, and I was supposed to wear a uniform, and I would go to school late. I would go buy the shoes like first thing in the morning, wear the shoes to school, get in trouble because you're not supposed to wear the shoes to school.
You were one of the first to wear the tie with the sneakers.
That was it, right?
I'm getting like Miles Morales energy.
Yeah, this is what I used to do. And then I'd be in detention. Everybody's like, you really did the detention thing just to do that? I'm like, I had to do it.
It was totally worth it.
Yeah.
Do you have a top?
One night of detention or one day of detention, not so bad.
You have a top 3 like pairs in your collection that are like, oh yeah, this is my
I mean,
brand.
there's stuff that I want that I'm probably never going to get, right? And there's stuff that I have where I'm like, man, I can't believe I got that, right? I got a pair of a Jordan 11 gray suedes that are like my favorite. They're very limited release, and was able to get a pair. I wear a size 14, so like it's pretty difficult to get sneakers sometimes, right? But there's a will, there's a way, right? So I think that's probably one of my favorites. I think my Concord 11s, I have multiple pairs of those, right? They're just like my all-time favorite shoes, right? And then I've got Strange Love Dunks that I love. I've got the Chunky Dunkies,
okay,
right, which are probably my favorites, right? So I've got some really cool pieces in the collection. But honestly, I'm one of these people, like, I don't buy shoes and then like display them. I wear all my shoes, right? Like, so.
Do you worry about the creases in them and stuff like that?
I mean, I have like crease beasts and stuff like that to help you with that, but like I don't really care about that. Like, because to me, you're supposed to wear them, right? Like you're supposed to like break them in. And what's the point of having them if I'm not stunting in them, right? So like I gotta do that.
Now, you said something that I want to go back to, because today's young person, or college grad, they're growing up with all this entrepreneurship. We're teaching it in school, and a lot of them, the era of working somewhere for 50 years and getting the gold watch is like gone.
Right.
Of course, now companies are laying off people. They don't have that. There's no that mutual loyalty. So I think kids are growing up a bit jaded of what it's like to be an employee.
Yeah.
But what you described, I think, is very important, because you can be entrepreneurial within a corporation.
Right.
So maybe shed a little bit of light of what was it like getting on those teams within those companies where you kind of flex your entrepreneur muscles, but on their dime.
Yeah, I think, and again, it's like good training wheels, right?
Yeah.
When you get $100 million budget or a $50 million budget to do a project, it's pretty good when it's not yours, right? Like, so you can play around a little bit and execute, right? And if you get good at it, they call you to do it again, right? And I think, to me, I think entrepreneurship is great, right? I think it's something that everybody should have, some form of that in their repertoire, right? Mm-hmm. Even if it's just for, I tell people all the time, like, even if it's just for tax purposes, right? Like, there's good benefit to owning your own business, right? I think that where people sometimes get a little too committed to that is like, I have to only do that. That's the only path. Like, there's so many different paths, right, to getting to where you want to go. And I'm a testament to that. Like, the amount of diversity in my background of professional career, everything from I've managed hundreds of people as head of product. I've managed hundreds of people in operations. I've managed a ton of people in finance, right? Like, all different functions. The CMO of Webster reported to me, right? Like, as part of what I did, right? So it's you can do a lot of different things, right? I think that what you have to do is try stuff, right? And you'll figure out pretty quick what you're good at, what you're not good at, ways to compensate for the shortcomings that you have, right? And then building those experiences. And then in my case, I saved up for years to do this thing, right? Like, so I'm like, I have kids, you got to put money away for college, you got to do these things, like all this other stuff. But it gave me the financial stability to be able to go out and try a thing, right? Without having to raise capital, right? A lot of times if you're starting right out of college and you want to go do something, there's nothing wrong with raising capital, right? But people have a lot of influence in the thing that you do. When I started telling, good friends of mine what I'm doing, they're like, "Oh, you want some money for that?" And I'm like, "Not yet." Right? Like if we're going to scale it, maybe, right? But right now, 100% ownership right here, right? Like, and
you don't want to give up equity.
I didn't want to give up equity. I didn't want to, and I advise a lot of companies, right? And so I see this a lot of times where, at some point in time, right, the board could take over or investors start to take over and, the vision of it changes and it could be good or it could be bad, right? I think for me, it was very important to get the foundations of this correct, right? And then once that kind of grows, I can leverage those relationships that I made in my professional career to kind of help me scale it.
Absolutely. And I think you came to us maybe 6 months earlier than when we actually initiated and got engaged on the project. So from when you had the idea to when you got started, how much of a runway did you give yourself?
I mean, I'd say I had the idea years ago, right? So what happened was there was a pop-up in New York City, right, that was being run where it was more about this company, not going to give free press, right? So this company was...
the spots are available.
Exactly. This company was focused more on like their customizations, what they do, right? But as part of it, they were doing... kind of classes where you could learn a little bit about how to do this. And I was looking for a holiday event, right, to take my executive team out to do, right? And at the time I had probably over 100, maybe 120 people on staff, but I had about 5 or 6 direct reports, right? And so I found this thing and I said, "Hey, do you guys want to go do this with me? This will be my holiday gift. And then my personal gift to you is I'll give you the shoes to do it," right? And we did it, and it was everyone from probably age late 30s to mid 60s, right? All ethnicities, all genders, right? No one into sneakers prior to this other than me, right? They know me because I wear sneakers to work every day, right? So they kind of came, and I remember stepping back like 3 hours into this, and I'm watching like the level of like intensity that these people are getting.
You're tapping into something,
right? I'm like
that unites everyone.
This is really cool, right? And
you see the little light bulb switch on.
Yeah, so I'm going
them.
like, well, what would really be cool is if you could do this, and they had like a bar, and you could bring in food, and you can do all these things, and it was more like a paint and sip, right? And I remember having that thought, and I kind of like stored it in the back of my mind, and then maybe 2 years later, I started realizing pretty quick, like, hey, I probably want to move into a different phase of my career, right? And I want to create some optionality, right? So maybe this is it. Maybe I go work at another place. Maybe I do both, right? And I just said, look, now's a good time, right? I can think through the components of this. And I just think that's where I got a lawyer to start the process of like, hey, I want to trademark this name and I want to do these things. And I got Kicksmith from obviously play on my last name a little bit, but it's a tradesman, right? Like, so blacksmith, locksmith, right? This is a person who works on sneakers, right? So that's basically what we're doing, right? At that point. And so, I thought that was a great name, went to legal. And then my lawyer, I asked him, I was like, hey, do you know anybody who does, kind of logo design or any of this other stuff? He's like, well, this guy, so that's how I got connected with you. And then it took me a little bit to kind of get it ready for me to start to run with it, right? And I think that's another piece too, which is taking your time, figuring out like what it is. Of course I want to get to market, but I was also like, I want to do this the right way, right? And that doesn't mean you have to have all things solved, but I needed enough stuff to be able to clear the road for me to go a little bit faster, right? So getting a partner in Greg, right? So Greg is a friend of mine, Greg Self, who runs our day-to-day operations and has been 100% business partner with me. He was basically doing something he wasn't in love with, right? And I called him and I said, look, here's the deal. I've got this idea. You are the only person that I can think of that I would ever want to put in this spot, right? You're so passionate about this. I trust you, right? You're a good guy. And I know you're going to like treat this with care, right? And you're going to have equity in this and you'll do these things. And he literally was like, I think originally he was kind of like, yeah, it's a cool idea. Like we should talk about it. And I was like, no, I'm like, I'm saying in 1 month, I'm going to call you and you're going to quit your job and we're going to do this together. And I'm going to bridge you to get to the point where we launch and then we're going to go from there. And that's exactly how it happened, right? So we were sitting on my deck talking about this. I think I spent a day putting together a business case with all the details of it. After you guys helped me do the logo design and all these pieces, and the rest is us just like literally grinding piece by piece, right? And figuring it out as we go.
Yeah, no, that reminds me of our first conversation, Jorge, when we had to have that moment where I said, okay, I got to sell you on a vision here, and I need you to quit your job. Take a pay cut.
You're right. You kind of have to have like this crazy leap of faith.
You have to sell them, right? You have to sell this vision and articulate it well. Like, here's what I have. Here's what I see, and get them on the same page.
It takes a lot of try. I mean, he's got 2 kids, right? Like, and to me, I'm like, look, I'm taking this serious. And what I think one of the things that maybe helped was I was kind of like, look, I can't do this without you, right? Or, or at least I can't. It would take me a lot longer to find somebody who's perfect for this. You're perfect for this. And I don't think that this is going to be the thing that I do every day, right? I have too many things that I'm managing all the time and thinking through and wanting to get involved in and opportunities that I want to chase down. I want to do this because I'm very passionate about it. And I need somebody who's going to literally be there every day to do this thing. And I think as soon as he saw that it was real, and I was putting up capital, and he's seen my track record in other things, right? So I think, I had credibility with him, and I think he was like, when do we start, right? When can we go? So it was great.
Yeah, no, this is awesome, and we had a blast working with you on the branding and going back and forth, and just create like it's now a great case study for us as a mark. That it was dope to see the videos of you got it on swag now, you got it on t-shirts.
Oh yeah, we're in there. Yeah,
it's all the way live. So as they say, so let's talk a little bit about now that you got the space.
Yep.
Take us there. Like, Norwalk's your home. So was that was a factor? Is just having it nearby, or is it
exactly? Okay. Yeah, because at the end of the day, like when you own the business, it stops with you, right? Like so. If God forbid, something happened, Greg had to move, or he won the lottery and he's like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Like, I still think, thankfully, I think even if he won $100 million, he'd still show up the next day because he just loves this business, right? Like, and I do too. But I got to be there just in case, right? So I needed something that was in arm's reach, and I wanted to be more involved in the foundational components of building it, right? And I think, again, understanding, your limitations and figuring out scheduling and stuff, I needed something I could get to fast, right? And like I can get back home, or I can get to, coach my daughter's team or do this thing. Like the studio is actually right around the corner from where my daughter plays. So like there's been a couple times where I'm like, let me run around the corner to practice and then run right back and finish painting and run right back and do this. So it's been good, right? That's kind of the logic for that.
Yeah, you're dropping so many gems for folks that the time is never going to be like perfect where you can go launch something, because you're juggling and prioritizing fitness, being a dad, having a career, and launching this venture. So I think there's a lot to be gleaned from this conversation, because you have this vision, and you just I guess the old saying is the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time.
Yeah, that's it.
You're just tackling these things as they come and getting it done.
I love the mindset of you don't let perfect be the enemy of live. Like if every single little thing had to be perfect, you would never go live. And we meet so many entrepreneurs who are kind of stuck in that mindset where they want everything to be absolutely perfect prior to the launch. And I'm like, listen, get the MVP, the minimum viable product, but you absolutely need to get off the ground. And then we can figure everything out.
There are so many more that never launch
because of
that than the ones that do. Right? This is rare, but there's something to be said for the determination of seeing it through. Making it happen.
Yeah, and I think everything is designed to be a living thing, right? So like, we launched the website. I've already made tweaks, right, based on the training that you guys.
It was great to go in and see it. I'm like, oh, he already changed this, that, and the other thing.
Because to me, I'm responding to, either feedback I get or things that I experience, right? And that's how it's got to be, right? And I think for me, the big differentiator in what we're doing is it is an experience, right? And Greg and I talk about this all the time. Like, you come in, your family, right? Like, we're treating you like this is your house, right? And we're serving you, we're helping you, you know, unleash your creativity. We want the space to be clean and manageable and easy to navigate. We want to have people feel at home and comfortable, right? Whether it's 2 people, like last night we had a couple that celebrated their anniversary. It was just Greg and them, right? Like, for that night, right? Like, that's what it was. The Friday before that, we had 30 people, right? Celebrating someone's 37th birthday, right? And it was the same thing.
So
everybody
take us
felt
through,
high touch.
I think this is a great segue into this segment of what is the experience? Is it like a hibachi where like you're gonna I'm gonna come in alone, but you're gonna pair me with a group? Or what is the experience? Do I go to your website and like pick a date?
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways you do this, right? The more traditional way it works is you go to our website, brought to us by you guys, right? Which was fantastic.
Peralta Design, we launch brands.
Yes, exactly. and you book a class, right? So we have open classes. The schedules is changing a little bit, right? Because what's been happening is we've been getting a lot of private events, which I'll talk about, right? But ultimately, when you book a class, you can check out right there, right? So you pick the date that works for you, how many people you want to bring, or if it's just you. And then when you do an open class, the way we've set it up in phase 1 of this, right? Again, not letting perfection be the enemy of good, right? Is you bring your own sneaker. There's multiple reasons to that decision, right? One is it's very difficult to keep inventory for like multiples of every size of every shoe. It's very unique and specific to a person. It's actually a lot easier if you go get the sneaker you want and we help you do it. In the future, right? Greg and I in the past and our, you know, years before, we've built and designed our own sneakers and sourced them from overseas before, right? So we've talked about, as a phase 2 of this, do we do our own silhouette?
You can order the Matt Smith 11s.
Exactly. Right? So you could have the Greg Self 12s and the Matt 11s. Yeah. So we're talking about that, right? So maybe that's you know, depending on what the response is from customers,
Kicksmith brand shoe
could be a thing where we have, you know, inventory there if you want to do it. So you could either bring your own or not. But for now, it's bring your own. The other way that you could do this is we have a request form if you want to do a private event, right? So a lot of what we've been experiencing in the beginning is people that are saying, I'm turning whatever age, I want to do a holiday party, I want to do a team building event, I want to do a fundraiser, I want to do a charity event, all things we've been talking with people about or they've booked. And you go on, you fill out the form, we talk about various different options. We have everything from a very basic, like bring your own shoe, it's a flat price, to I want Air Force Ones for everybody involved, and I want full catering, and I want, you know, top shelf stuff. Like we can do everything, right? So what I want to do is get people comfortable with, you know, the package that they pick, whatever it is, we can make modifications and we try and do those types of things. And then I'd say the third one is like the kids parties, right? Which is a little bit different format. We actually had a person reach out and say, my 3-year-old loves sneakers. I want to come in and do it. And I'm going, I think we could figure this out, right? What I would probably do there is like, everybody's going to do a splatter thing. No, because kids love that, right? So like, just take the shoe, we'll tape it off and splatter it.
A strategic mess goes a long way for that age.
Exactly, right.
It could look cool. I mean,
it could look cool, right? So we're like very open to working with folks, right? And we're transparent about like, hey, this is how we think we might do it. But again, it's a customer service business, right? It's an experience business. We want people to leave having been like, this was really cool, right? Posting about it, talking about it.
And the space looks pretty dope. Is it like a couple thousand square feet? How
it's
big?
2,000 square feet. We've got, you know, kind of working tables. So right now we can fit up to 30 people at a table. And then we've got a lot of like lounge space, right? And we've got a bar and that kind of stuff. We could do upwards of 50 people pretty comfortably in a class. And so even when we had that party that I talked about with 30 people, like everybody was very comfortable. We had catering come in, we had the open bar, right? So we worked it really well, and everybody was raving about the experience, which to me felt really good.
And what was the build out like? Is it like poured concrete, or is it like, how did you do the floors?
So we took over a space that actually was a paint and sip. So that was one of the factors when I looked into this, right? It helped out a lot because there wasn't,
how convenient.
They're already set up for that.
Not a ton of construction, right? So I mean, what I will tell you is like, it was literally, they ripped everything out, including the hot water heater, right? Which is very interesting. So I was like, we have no lights, no hot water heater, but we've got good bones here, right? And very questionable paint color choices all over these walls, right? So it's very high ceilings. It is an industrial look and feel, right? Like so the floor is poured concrete, right? Yeah. And there is definitely little, fragments of paint splatter all over the floor, which to us, we think builds character, right? And we're not planning on getting rid of that. And then everything else is more decor that, kind of fits with our theme and our brand. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So tell us how folks can find out more, maybe share your social handles, because you guys have been busy on social media with the reels. Yeah, we've been trying.
Yeah, we hit 1,000 followers yesterday, so we're excited about that, right? We've been open, a week and a half now, which feels pretty good, almost 2 weeks now, so it's good. Our handle on every social is Kicksmith Studio, right, at Kicksmith Studio. And then our website is www.kicksmithstudio.com. And all the information is there, right? If you want to reach out to me, it's matt@kicksmithstudio.com, right? Or my email address. We're excited. We're getting the buzz, and we think it's a great idea, right? And people are really giving us great feedback in terms of their experience. And that's really all we care about, right? Is people are having a good time and enjoying the culture of it, and understanding that, sneakers, you don't have to be a sneakerhead. Like, everybody wears sneakers, right? It could be running shoes. I did the New York City Marathon 2 weeks ago. I customized my running shoes before I did it, right? Like, and I had more people that were like, oh, I want to come and do that, right? So you could do running sneakers. You could do basketball sneakers. My daughter's basketball team wants to come in and customize their shoes for the season. Great idea, right? Let's do it, right? And we've had,
I think you mentioned bachelorette parties. Like, what a great idea that everybody comes and has, like,
that was a big one.
You take your heels off, and then afterwards, like, we all have the same.
Yeah. But this idea, though, like, I'm seeing NFL players do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just becoming more popular.
It's great team building. It's great, just having fun with your friends. Great date night idea. Any of the above, right? So anybody can do it. And even if you think you're not into sneakers, I guarantee you are, right? You have something. And I tell people all the time, bring something you don't wear anymore. Everybody's got at least one pair of shoes in their closet where, like, I'm not really wearing those anymore. Perfect to customize.
So they don't have to be a white shoe.
Nope. Could be colored. Could be anything you want, right? The big thing is, I think the leather is a little easier to work with because it's more diverse in terms of things you can do, right? Adding fabrics, this kind of stuff. But any color shoe you can paint over it, doesn't matter, right? So it's good to go.
Nice. Give us one piece of advice for someone out there sitting on an idea that's just not taking it to that next level.
Yeah, I think identify what's stopping you from doing it, right? What are the big obstacles? And then don't let that get in your way, right? Just really focus on trying to execute to overcome those obstacles and be disciplined, right? That's really the two main components that I think are a recipe for success for anything. But I think most people get an idea and they stop at, like, it's too hard, right? At an easy one is too hard, right? Or there's some gating obstacle. I don't have money, I don't have this. You can solve those problems, right? There are people that can help you. Lots of people like myself, right? Like, where I'm like sit and talk with companies all the time about how to achieve certain things, right? So I think you can do it. It's just a matter of, being disciplined and executing against that.
Excellent. Well, we can't wait to come and try it out.
Yeah.
And have our PD party there at Kicksmith Studio in Norwalk.
Let's do it.
All right, man. Thank you for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode of Mission Control. Until next time, this is your host, Ramon Peralta with Peralta Design, and we launch brands.